story of the Bunker Hill neighborhood begins in 1867, when the hilly piece of land in rapidly developing Los Angeles, California, was purchased by wealthy real estate investor, Canadian immigrant, and future mayor of LA, Prudent Beaudry. Beaudry purchased land in what would become Bunker Hill with plans to construct ornate Victorian mansions, transforming the underdeveloped land into exclusive, elegant neighborhoods for the ultra-wealthy. Beaudry developed infrastructure, subdivided the hill, and masterminded much of the early layout of Bunker Hill. Beaudry Avenue remains named after him. Bunker Hill largely adhered to Beaudry's visions, and Victorian mansions were hastily built on the hill. The historic castle, pictured here, was constructed in 1882, and the years prior and following saw much development. Already becoming a hub for the wealthy, the Bunker Hill neighborhood truly became a mecca for the upper class when the Angel's Flight funicular was built on New Year's Eve, 1901. This funicular connected and convenienced travel from the luxury residential area atop the hill to the business district below, where many wealthy residents spent their working hours. After this construction, Bunker Hill saw the height of its time as an elegant borough for the upper class, a status which would not endure much longer. In 1928, the 2nd Street Tunnel was constructed. The tunnel protruded east to west through the crest of the hill, connecting the areas and transforming the quiet, wealthy neighborhood atop the hill into a deafening traffic hub. This intolerable noise and congestion began the demographic shift atop the hill and marked the first step towards eventual urban renewal in 1958. While the prior wealthy residents of the Bunker Hill neighborhood fled for new suburban developments such as in Pasadena and Beverly Hills, Bunker Hill and its mansions housed a new, lower-class demographic. Seizing the newly vacated mansions at low prices, numerous real estate investors began to repurpose the buildings. Recognizing that the wholesale of a mansion would be unlikely due to the flight of wealth from Bunker Hill, the landlords came up with a new model to maximize profits. This model involved the extensive subdivision of mansions, converting them into rooming houses with several small sleeping rooms and shared utilities. The mansions became overpopulated and received minimal maintenance from the landlords, who prioritized maximum occupancy rather than safe living conditions. These micro-apartments were rented at low rates to even lower-class individuals, primarily elderly retirees, intern and seasonal workers. With this, the ethnic makeup of the Bunker Hill neighborhood changed drastically. While the previous wealthy owners of the mansions were nearly all white, the new residents had a diverse ethnic makeup. 20% of the residents were foreign-born, mostly including Mexican seasonal workers, while the rest of the residency was a mix of immigrants from Asia, including the Philippines, Japan, Korea, and China. Poor Midwest white workers fleeing the Dust Bowl and Native Americans also populated Bunker Hill. In this way, Bunker Hill was transformed from an oasis for the white upper class to an ethnically diverse neighborhood for underclass pensioners and wage workers. The Melrose Hotel, demolished in 1962 and pictured here, epitomizes the demographic metamorphosis of Bunker Hill. Originally constructed in 1889 on Charity Street, which is now Grand Avenue, the Melrose Hotel was a 5-story Victorian mansion which housed the ultra-wealthy and was often host to elegant balls and other aristocratic social events. It was a central location for high society in California and even accommodated President William McKinley during his visit to LA in 1901. It served as the literal background for the speech he gave. He stood on the porch. By 1950, however, the Melrose Hotel was no longer a cultural hub for the wealthy, the sleeping quarters and stage for the president, but a rooming house which quartered around 200 poor retirees and workers. Its opulence had faded, and overpopulation and lack of maintenance had led to dilapidation. This dilapidation was not isolated to the Melrose Hotel. The Victorian mansions of Bunker Hill, once pristine and symbolic of an oligarchic overclass, had become damaged and reculturalized as symbols of poverty. This, resulting from landlord greed and lack of concern for the lower class, led the Bunker Hill neighborhood to be targeted by the Los Angeles CRA. From its formation in 1948, the Los Angeles CRA, or Community Redevelopment Agency, had its sights set on Bunker Hill. The Bunker Hill area is central to downtown Los Angeles, and its modernization would represent a massive victory and proof of concept for urban renewal efforts around the country. With the signing of the Federal Housing Act of 1949, which allowed government resources to be allocated for urban renewal, the Los Angeles CRA had its first weapon in the war for Bunker Hill urban renewal. 3 years later, with help from the Los Angeles Health Department, the Bunker Hill area was officially declared blighted. With this declaration of blight, plans for urban renewal in Bunker Hill were set in motion by the Los Angeles CRA.